Hello and welcome to another episode of Cartridge Club Prime. I am Musty Hobbit and I'll be hosting our June episode where we've gone and selected a gritty third-person tactical cover shooter and survival horror mashup, the Xbox 360 exclusive Gears of War. And joining me for the show will be Jason from CorpseFlood Gaming, the Game Tenants podcast, and the Super Enabler Bros podcast. I had a great time chatting with Jason about his experience with the series, where he feels it fits in with the rest, and some of the differences you'll get if you check out the 2016 Ultimate Edition available on Xbox One and PC. So roadie run to a nice comfy seat. It's going to be a wild ride. So the year's 2005, and the Xbox 360 is coming out. They're like, we don't have Halo yet. We need something really, really, really big. And so, 2005, they're like, let's reveal a nice big exclusive. And Cliffy B comes out on E3, and I remember the presentation. I actually found it on YouTube, but to watch it again. But I remember him showing one of the encounters from the game. What's your memory of Gears? Like do you remember the pre-launch stuff with Gears?
Yeah, it was kind of cool because they did a lot different than they do now. It was like more like an early build, like an alpha maybe, or maybe even a beta. I don't know, but it was pre. A lot of the stuff that they added, it kind of really makes you realize how much stuff can be last minute in a game.
Yeah, but, there were some big just missing pieces. I think Marcus looked much different.
Yeah. Speaking of things they needed, the really big things they needed, apparently it was just people's feet.
Feet?
Well, did you see the boots on these guys?
Well, they're like tree trunks, right? Like they're like elephant legs. Yeah.
It's pretty great. I mean, it kind of reminded me of those like Fisher Price Rescue Heroes toys they used to have in like the late 90s.
Okay.
Like toddlers. Yeah. That's totally what I remember thinking at first, but I was like, yeah, it makes sense. If you see the guy who designed them all, I think I shared a meme a while ago, and the guy he looks like a Gears of War character.
Yeah.
Like, he just went by his own proportions. Like,
well, yeah, and they looked much different than anything that was coming out, right? Everything, like everyone almost looked like professional, pro wrestler or like a football player. Yeah, they just big bulky individuals,
big bulky beefcakes.
And I feel like the game, even to this point, even though now the series has a female protagonist, right? Like the series had this like kind of perception to it that it was like a meathead kind of thing,
macho dude, bro.
Yeah. I mean, and
to a point, it does.
I guess Cliffy B coming out and selling the game in the first place because it was his brainchild. Didn't really do it any favors either because he was very energetic, almost egotistical. He still has perceptions of him. He's kind of faded into the darkness at this point. But
yeah, especially after his studio went under.
Yeah, was that Lawbreakers?
Yeah,
that's too bad. Emergence Day was the thing that they were always talking about, right? Like that was that was their way of like selling launch was Emergence Day.
Yeah, that's a good name for like release day. It made sense, and it ties in with the lore of the series too. So
it was pretty cool.
It was good marketing.
Oh, it was real good marketing. One of the things that I think to this day, and I miss it. I miss granted, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but like the way that TV commercials of that era, especially like leading up to a game's release, when they would like drop this during like Monday Night Football or
Super Bowl kind of thing.
Some big event, and the first time I saw the Mad World commercial, like that was me going, like I was pretty warm about it because I had the 360 at that point. I wanted reasons to feel really good about the 360 at that point, other than Oblivion, which I think I was playing a ton at that point in time.
That was one of the first games I bought. I know that.
Yeah, oh yeah. I was bummed that got pushed out of the launch window, but when I saw that Mad World commercial, I was like, yeah, I will go put my money down on that game right now. Like, if you haven't seen the commercial, those of you who are listening again, I miss this kind of TV spot.
Yeah, it was pretty epic. It's selling it like a movie almost, and just showcasing what the game has rather than, just a cool like morose music that went with it. With Mad World being kind of like a bummer of a song, and showing all this stuff happening. You're like, wow, what the hell is this? I gotta be checking this out.
Yeah, and I think if I remember right, Gears 2 did something similar, and I just can't remember what the song was. But they did another one of those of that style of ad. But it's fallen off. We just don't get that anymore. And I think it's
just everything's always on all the time. So there's always like, everything just gets swept under the rug almost. There's so many. Sure. The game industry has become such a giant beast that, the real AAA games might get something or like a crazy ad campaign, but it's more like quick 20-second before your YouTube video starts videos, and it doesn't really do much for you. And it's all got the same kind of music to it too. So, and a lot of the time they just put in popular music to get the young people's attention, but a lot of the time it doesn't fit in. I'm thinking especially the Mortal Kombat 11 reveal.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? And it was like, dubstep trap music stuff, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like I watched it again and muted it, and I liked it so much better. I was like, this doesn't fit in at all. Because I'm like, I love what I'm seeing, I just hate what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, everything was blah.
It was the Christopher Nolan horns.
Yeah. Just everything, and you're just like, you're showing me flashes of action, and so it's I know I'm supposed to think this is epic, but I'm too busy laughing at the bois.
But yeah, like we can look back at that commercial and just see like this. Yeah, it felt so different. And I mean, it sold me on the thing. I remember picking it up and playing it on day one. I assume you're in the same boat.
Pretty close, yeah. Actually, my brother is the one that bought it. I think he was out of town for something. He picked it up, brought it over, and we started playing through it. And I was into it right away. I'd heard about it, but I'd just gotten my 360. I always wait a couple of years before consoles come out until there's a bunch of games, and I just grabbed it, and I think it was probably like a week after I got my own 360 that it came out, or maybe it was just right after he got it. I don't know. Sure. Maybe it wasn't right at launch, but I remember being stoked for him bringing it over. And for last gen, that's the kind of what we do. I'd anything that was on, multiple systems, I'd grab on 360 because, hey, he can borrow it. Hey, we can play it together if he's got a copy too, that kind of stuff. And that's the first game he bought that wasn't one that I already had, that I was like, damn, I need to steal this from you because I'm going to be playing the shit out. We played a couple hours and I was kind of like, yeah, leave this here.
Just you won't miss it. It'll be fine.
You won't miss your game you just bought. We had a kind of a cool thing going with that. I stopped buying Call of Duties and Halos because I'd buy it, but then he'd borrow it till the next one came out, especially with Call of Duty. But Gears of War was the one I was right into. It quickly became my favorite co-op game, and to this day, it's my favorite co-op series. Like as soon as it comes out, I got to be playing it with someone. Like
That's awesome.
I usually play through it on my own on like normal, maybe hardcore, but I save insane for playing with a friend because it makes it less aggravating and more fun.
I don't know that I've ever played any. I haven't played any of them on the highest difficulties. Like that's. I find this game it's not easy.
Yeah, the first one especially is pretty challenging, especially near the beginning. It seems to be pretty. It's almost like it's got difficulty spikes, but you're not fighting any different enemies. They just seem to be smarter at the beginning of the game to get you kind of like, jumped in, sort of, kind of like you're being initiated into a gang. You're like,
that makes sense.
Oh, it goes like this, yeah, and it really hammers into your head like this is a cover shooter, not a run and gun. Like get in cover or you're not going to be long for this world.
Yeah, that I think was one of the big selling points here was like other games had done cover mechanics. Kill Switch is one of the ones on the original Xbox that did some of that. You had your like Metal Gear, like some of the Metal Gear games, but a lot of that was like the stealthiness. There wasn't.
Yeah, it was more like hide behind stuff for stealth purposes more than you could kind of hide behind things for gunning, but it wasn't really refined. And I find that when this came out, it really like stepped up what a cover shooter can be and really kind of reinvigorated that idea of a game where you're like, you can have cover without having to be stealth. And it's not just all strafing. Because I remember shooting games before this was like more about strafing and, ducking down behind cover, but not like, sticking up against the cover.
Yeah.
And you really utilizing it rather than just, if I walk behind this car, they can't shoot me for a minute. So I can, figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, in this game, and I feel like there's like a sense of weight, like because there's some leeway as far as like when you're able to snap into cover. But when you do, like you feel it, the sound is there. There's a bit of a punch to it, and you just kind of slam your shoulder into that,
kind of
a little bit, and then and like I think that's some of what felt so good because it was breaking the mold of what all these other third person action games had done, and it was taking things that made sense in even a first person shooter world of the Halos and the Call of Duties and things like that, which really at that point were even hitting their own stride, and then taking enough of those mechanics and pulling those over. My question, you've tried it across all the different difficulties. You mentioned how punishing it can be. Like, did you feel like it was almost too cruel to you in some instances? Like that you just got shredded in some cases?
Yeah, there's some definite trial and error things. And it kind of brings me back to kind of the classic games like Contra, where you got to remember the pattern when the guys show up out of the side of the screen, because sometimes you'll be in an area where you're like, oh yeah, you're like, I got these guys, and then someone will blast down a wall behind you, and you're like, oh crap, I didn't account for that. So, or someone will have the Troika gun, the
big turrets,
big turret gun, and you'd be like, all right, so I gotta deal with these guys trying to flank me and take that thing out because it'll shred you in no time at all on any difficulty. So really used to what guns work good for what situation and what you want to kind of keep in your loadout, because this isn't like a lot of the other shooters of the time where you can just pick up as many guns as you want and cycle through them. Now you get like 2 main guns, your grenade, and your handgun.
So there was a pretty good assortment. I'll let you go first. Do you have maybe a favorite weapon or maybe an also ran?
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a spoiler. If you listen to the Game 10s podcast, we did a thing about favorite guns in video games.
Yeah.
And pretty quick, I came up with what mine was, and that's the Lancer. I always got to have the Lancer in my.
That's a good choice.
In my
It's a very
loadout.
good choice.
It's a chainsaw machine gun. It's the coolest idea in, it's not the most devastating game. It's not the BFG from Doom or anything like that, but it's both useful and melee and ranged. It doesn't have a crazy spread, so it's a good, pretty accurate from most ranges. And then I always had to have, as soon as the Boltok gun, which is basically the Magnum, as soon as that's available, that's my go-to gun. I love just picking off squishy headshots with that thing. It's one of the selling points of this game to me. I'm a big horror fan, and I love just sawing up anything I can, or just blowing everything into chum.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, so the Lancer just became like the icon of this of this game. Like, they showed it when they revealed it. When Rod Ferguson moved on from the Coalition, but when he left, they gave him a gold-plated one, right? Like, I think, yeah,
that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You have one as well.
Yes, actually, I have two.
You have two.
Party City carried them around last Halloween.
Party City carried them. Okay.
Around last Halloween, and they were so cheap. They were like $30, and I was like, all right, well, I'm getting one, and I knew the John DiMaggio was going to be at a convention I was going to, and I was like, I am going to custom it up. I grabbed my spray paint, and I made the chainsaw part all bloody, and I was like, because I looked at the thing when I finally got it, like I looked at it online, I was like, I'm totally getting him to sign one of these.
That's awesome.
But then when I got it, it's so detailed and bumpy. I was like, where's he even going to sign on it? I was like, the only real flat part where it'd be a nice place to sign is on the saw blade. So I was like, right there then. Okay, so I'm bloodying that, and then he can sign that.
You can sign over the blood.
Yeah, and I was thinking of doing something custom with the other one, and maybe do like a Gears costume or something to go with it. But this one that's signed is going in a shadow box. But
for sure.
Yeah, obviously a big fan of that gun. It's this is basically my favorite shooter series, bar none. During the 360 generation, my most played games on the platform, especially online, were Battlefield Bad Company 2 and Gears 2. Nice. It was one of those games that don't even tell me about it. Just tell me when it's coming out, and I will pick it up.
That's great. That's great. There's a few guns I don't want to miss talking about. Okay. I dug the Lancer a lot as well, but I think some of the specialty ones that I really liked. I liked the torque bow.
Oh yeah, torque bow is fun.
The torque bow was a good time. So the torque bow effectively is a like a long bow, but the bolts for it are explosive. Yeah, and it's nice because it gives you the arc, right? You pull the bow back, and then the thing winds up, and you hear kind of these like gears, literally, like turning to like getting
like a hydraulic bow.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
It shoots and it just like sticks, and you get this like really satisfying sound.
The tink, feel like something got stuck with that.
Yeah, and then if you manage to actually get them, like the spray. Like the explosion and like the blood spray, if you got it, it's just like this giant geyser that just goes straight up.
It's a little over the top at times, but that's
it can be. But I mean, if you against the right enemies, it's a one shot kill. The problem is you can't hold it forever. Like
after a while, it'll automatically let go.
Yeah. So that one was really cool.
It's more original in the game, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, it was another one of those that kind of, you have your standard shotgun, you've got your burst rifle, you've got your sniper rifle, which I like the long shot, but it doesn't do a ton that's like super unique for me.
Yeah, no, really. It's just one of those. If you it's glorious when you get a headshot, but any other kind of shot, you're like, come on, yeah, it's super hard. Yeah. Yeah, I played the original and Ultimate within I think a day and a half.
There you
I
go.
went. It was like the 1st of June. I was like messaging, church mainly because he got me to play Undertale last month, and I was like, you know what that means? It was June 1st, and I was like, so we going or what? And he's like, I've already played the first one. I played it on PC. Maybe I'll play 2, and I was like, fine. So then I just steamrolled first one and Ultimate Edition right in a row. So like,
there you go.
I was like, any excuse to play Gears, and I'm on it. So yeah. I made it a personal goal to beat all 4 360 installments and the Ultimate Edition this month, and just squeaked by.
There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. That's
thanks. I was planning to do co-op of 2, 3, and Judgment with church, but we were coming down to the wire, and I had a day where I couldn't really get down to the game room. Luckily, I have a 360 in my living room as well, so I was like, I got 2 TVs set up in the living room. The kids can watch whatever they want on the big one. The small one, it's not really even that small. It's like a 32. But on the side, I just played Judgment while I played with them and stuff. And luckily, they aren't put off by gore and stuff.
That's good, because there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And depending on how you're, we already talked about what happens with the torque bow, but like, the Lancer, it has a chainsaw.
It is never not amazing catching someone with that saw. Most of my deaths, I would say, in this game is when I'm just like on a saw spree, and then someone walks up behind me and like shoots me. I don't really, in the multiplayer, I'm more, conscious of that kind of stuff. But when I'll get going on the song, and I start getting a little, I feel like Ash from Armory Darkness.
Bloodlust.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I should have probably went behind cover. So that's why I like about co-oping, because I can like pick me up. I got a little too into it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that they don't at least let that happen, right? Like if you're pretty much at all times you have a teammate with you in the story, and like if they get downed, you can either just finish the fight and then they'll pop up, or you can go revive them by just pressing X while you're standing next to them. But it doesn't work the other way if you're playing with a computer. Yeah,
they are pretty like, I better kill everything. Like, it's like they think that's the only way to do it. Unless you can be right next to them sometimes, and they'll be like, I gotta get in a fist fight with this guy. Oh, I died. And you're like, thanks, bud.
That's right.
Yeah.
There were a few times when I very specifically had to like tell Dom to like pull back like off of an enemy. I'm just like, no, stop. No, you're too close. Come on, come back.
Oh, especially at the end.
Yep.
On the train.
Yep.
Especially in the harder difficulty. That's another reason why you want to play a harder difficulty with a partner, because he just like runs towards them, doesn't get in cover really at all, and then just goes down. And you're like, come on, man, please. So you gotta run up there faster. It's basically a race to kill the boss before Dom gets himself killed sometimes.
Yeah.
Usually they're pretty good at staying in cover. Like, let me be the commando. Let me go run up and take the risky things, because if you die, it's just aggravating to me. If I die, I'm only annoying myself.
Sure.
So it's like,
there were some moments though that I got frustrated at the like I was barely out of cover for long at all, and I got ruined, and there were it's not like a sniper got me, although that did happen. They try and call it out. They're like, it's cool though, because like you'll get into these arenas, and like the way that they introduce a lot of the enemies in the game are through these what they call emergence holes, which is just kind of like a hole opens up in the ground and they start crawling out, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're quick, or if you've died a few times and it's coming, you just kind of have a grenade ready and just toss it right in there before a whole lot of guys come out. That grenade can even take out guys that are like actively trying to get out of the hole.
Yeah, it's pretty satisfying that too when you just see a bunch of gore and sand fly in the air when you throw it in there. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I still remembered where a lot of them would come out. I'd be like, I just run really fast, equip the grenade, throw it, okay, and then another one on it ruins the surprise a little bit after you've played it, but like when you're first playing, you're like, they can pop up anywhere, and it kind of, if that's where it feels almost a little survival horror ish.
Oh sure, there's some areas there's a lot of darkness in this game. I know that people look at games from the 7th generation, and a lot of them talk about, oh, it's just a lot of browns and grays and stuff like that. This game also fits that mold to some extent, but they do a lot with like dark settings with like interesting lighting. There's a lot of underground things as well, but even just, I mean, I think there's enough variety with the enemies that there's still moments that are like the whole Doom-like monster closets, right? Like you said, there's an entry point behind you now, and so now you got to figure out, like, can I get to that without leaving myself too exposed, or should I get into cover somewhere else because these other guys are going to come flank me? Like the computer felt relatively smart.
Yeah, for the enemies anyway. I feel after playing them both in a row, but it felt like the AI for the team members was a lot dumber in the Ultimate Edition, which is
interesting.
The opposite of what you would expect, because the Ultimate Edition is essentially a port of the PC version of the first game, and it adds, a couple small sections that kind of really stand out if you've played it before.
So the story itself like follows like a 5-chapter or 5-act arc. I think like all the games have kind of modeled itself after this first game. But there's like a full probably 45-minute section ish, at least, including a big fight with the biggest enemy in the game.
A big surprise if you've played the first one extensively, and then all of a sudden, this isn't what I'm used to. What's going on here? So it's like, it was cool. Like, it was almost like playing it for the first time again.
So this moment here for me was a shock. Like I was really surprised by it. It was one of your, like, how did you feel about this edition? Like you said it fit, but what'd you think about the fight itself?
It was cool and challenging, like really challenging. Usually when you fight one of the Brumak in any of the other games, you're more equipped for it, I would say. Like, you've got the other games introduce more devastating weapons like the mortar and stuff like that. But this one, you had the some basic weapons, and you had to be really strategic, because that was one of those as soon as you're out of cover, get back in some other cover quick.
Well, you can't let him get too close. Like, he got the big stomp. I kept getting stomped. Like,
oh, okay.
Like, I was just like, like it was one of those moments where it's like, I can't get mad at this because I know I'm just not doing it right. Like, but it was just like I would actually get both arms
disabled.
Yeah, we get both arms disabled, and then
missile volley.
Yeah, I just got wiped. Like, I didn't stick to cover well enough, or like the angle they had on me was not right.
Yeah, you got to keep distance, but not too much distance. But also, this is probably the only point in the game where just being behind cover wasn't enough. Like, you needed to be behind cover and far enough away that the rockets couldn't just take you right out, or he can stomp on you, or it's that's what I mean. It adds like an extra strategy that you got to think about that you won't really find anywhere else in the game.
There's one spot that I can think of that had some like real importance, and like you had to be super intentional about how you were moving. And so one of the moments that I really enjoyed was earlier in the game. I think it was like Act 2. You're traveling at night, and there's this area basically at night. If you remember if you remember Pitch Black,
Yeah.
like there's at night in that movie is when these monsters come out, and they have like flying ones that are like razor sharp type enemies, and they exist in this game as well, and they're called the Krill.
Yeah.
And so the important part here is that you needed to be very careful about where you were stopping, and you couldn't stay in the darkness for too long. And so like you would have to go and find propane tanks, shoot them to make them catch on fire, and then run, like use that to kind of path your way through the level. And I just thought it was really cool to give you that purpose and that kind of direction while still having to have encounters. Like you still had fights against the Locust, and you were still dealing with those guys. And then if you stuck around too long in the darkness, or you maybe you missed one of the tanks because it was like hidden off to the side behind something.
Boards.
Yeah. You missed it, and you just get just shredded, and it was gross.
As far as points in the game, I'd say that one and another area near the end have the most come on moments where you die and you're like, I barely did that, you know. Where there's that point, and that's weird that you shoot the propane tanks to get the light and then you rush towards them.
That's right.
It's against anything you've ever been taught in any other video game. It's usually shoot the propane tank and get as far away from it as you can.
Yeah.
But
well, it works cool though, because they built in like there was a purpose for them in the story. Like there was some exposition done with these checkpoint guys who you talked to along the way, and they were like, "Man, you shouldn't have blown all that up. Like we needed that." Like, and it's like, well, like, sorry.
Official Gears business, mind your own business.
Yeah. and there's no way to get through there without like you can't just, like, if you miss one, you have like a very minimal window of being able to make it.
It's mostly you're not going to make it. If you do make it, you had 99% just about to die. But there's a couple you can miss, but it's definitely a keep your eyes open moment. Besides that come on moment, there's a part at the end that's kind of Indiana Jones-ish, I would say, where you're in the little mine cars, and and you've got the exploding wretches.
Yes.
That part is okay on normal, but if you're playing on insane, an explosion automatically just pulps you. So you got to be super,
because they're like hanging on the ceiling, right? Like you have a very short time to take them out before, and those are the guys who like. Yeah. I found myself with those guys, especially because there's a bunch on the train toward the end as well. I found myself trying to salvage ammo and just meleeing them because I could. But that's a good point. I didn't think about the proximity. There's a spot where you can fall into the basement with a ton of those guys.
Yeah. That's got some of the most, like, you know, it feels more like a zombie moment at those. When you get a bunch of those guys around, because you can kill them, but you know you gotta keep moving too, because they can swarm you pretty quick, and they might be like the wimpiest enemies in the game. That's kind of like if you got swarmed by the little grunts from Halo. It's like a comparison. It's like a shameful death where you're like, oh, those guys got me. Come on, man. The guys that I can like punch and they die. Damn. So it's
that's good.
It's a little bit crazy that might be one of the more challenging parts in the game on Insane, is what I remember, because you shoot them and they fall down directly. They can fall into the next thing, so you got to also be in cover, and you're popping in and out. And if your AR partner is garbage and isn't pulling his weight, sometimes even he can get killed, and you're like, oh, come on. Yeah, it's really unforgiving. I'd say this is probably the hardest one on Insane.
Of the series?
Yeah, that I've played.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that I can really think of. Like, they all got their challenges for sure, but this one seemed the most unforgiving, but still manageable. Like, a lot of it was like, as long as you're using your cover correctly, you're good. I remember restarting that more than I wanted to on Insane on my co-op playthrough. It was pretty frustrating because you'd be like, I killed him, but then his exploding corpse killed me. So,
Yeah,
it felt like kind of almost you got to be so quick with it that it felt kind of like a whack-a-mole game where if you don't whack the mole, it whacks you. So.
So let me ask you this: how on insane difficulty, how hard is the berserker fight? Like what changes? Is it just a matter of damage, or do they actually like?
He's a bit smarter. I think he dashes at you more.
Okay.
But he can kill you pretty much just as easy. But instead of getting downed, like sometimes he only downs you if he hits you. Anytime he hits you, you're pretty much just pulp.
Gotcha. Just like one shot.
That's probably the hardest part. I mean, you take more damage on Insane, but if anything is explosive, it pretty much kills you right away. You're lucky if you get downed. They're pretty relentless. But it's it's still fun. It's part of the challenge of it. I mean, if you're playing on Insane, you ask for it, I guess.
Sure. But hey, I mean that's the experience. I mean they didn't market this game as this is going to be a walk in the park. Like this was going to be a challenge. The Berserker fight, I thought, for those who haven't had a chance yet to play it, the Berserker is blind but has really good hearing and can smell you, and basically just charges at you. And
like the Juggernaut, basically.
I was thinking like the Office linebacker guy. But yeah, I mean that's basically it. The moment that it realizes you're there, it's just
runs at
you. If there's a wall, if there's a wall or a column or something, just like right through it. And you need to use them at least in the first time, which is toward the end of Act 1 or at the end of Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
You need to guide them to like open the next door, and you have to do that a couple of times to get out into a courtyard. And I don't know how it happened, but the first time that when I was playing this ultimate version, I managed to get out to the courtyard, and the doorway to prevent you from going back inside has like debris that covers it up, and the Berserker was inside.
Oh,
and so I couldn't use the Hammer of Dawn, which I just realized that we haven't even talked about the hammer yet.
Yeah.
But you need the Berserker to be outside to be able to use the weapon. And so when I reloaded the checkpoint, we were all outside. I was like, okay, that's
good.
Relief.
That would suck if you were just had to redo
all of that back to the beginning of that encounter.
But, it can be a pain, and once just like any game, once you're used to it, you kind of know how to deal with it. But the first time you fight that thing, it's horrifying. Luckily the characters in the game are pretty good for being like, we gotta try and get him outside or whatever. Like they're pretty good at hinting through not super obvious sounding ways. Like it's one of those games where you should definitely pay attention to what they're saying during battle. But I remember the first time just trying to like kill him with just shooting because I wasn't playing it very loud because it's a pretty loud game, and I think everyone at my house was in bed when I was playing it, and I was like, what do I do to this guy? And then I turned it up a little bit, and they're like, well, get him outside. And I was like, oh, there we go.
Okay, we'll do that.
And it's cool. Like they kind of, not every game, but he's in a couple of the games, and they find a cool evolution for him in most of the games. Like you fight him again in the third one. There's like a lambent one, which is like a, I don't want to go too much into.
We always struggle with picking games of the month sometimes, especially games that have established series, because it's like we know that maybe this game is maybe the better game in the series, or or maybe that's up for debate. And so it's like we should play that, but then we ultimately leave out everybody who hasn't played the first one because they feel like because a lot of us, especially those of us who like our story-driven games, like to be in the know, right? They don't want just a 5-minute summary video to lead into Gears 2.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to. Yeah, there's not really even a last time on Gears.
Well, they started to add it, right?
Yeah,
like so 5 had a here's everything, or here's kind of like the cliff notes of the game to lead up to this. We picked this game, and I hope that people who maybe are listening to this who didn't get a chance to play along, you know, I do hope that you take the opportunity to give this one a try. The story itself, and I mean, I think Jason, I think you are a testament to it, right? Like you played the first game and you were crazy about it, and you've played all of them since.
I get crazier and crazier about it. The last few games. It's
a sign of a good series, though, right?
Without going into it, it's a strong first game that makes you want, wow, I wonder how they built on this, and it's definitely on the 360. They got better and better and better, and more cool weapons are added, more cool enemy types. They don't kind of, if you're definitely playing a Gears game when you play them, and there's not a whole ton new stuff to learn, but they do some great quality of life changes and keep it interesting with the new guns. There's all types of new things to play around with every time. That's like one of the draws I find, because you're like, oh, how am I going to use this in multiplayer or horde mode? And that's the only bummer, is that the first game doesn't have the horde mode, which is like the co-op survival thing, and that's probably my favorite thing of the series.
So horde mode is the like PvE, like you're a squad versus waves.
Yeah,
waves, right. And that was the third one, right?
No, second one came out with it. Third one improved on it. Okay. Third one, you could build the fortifications. It wasn't just like find a area and like bunker down. Like you could pick kind of a base.
Okay.
And put up wire and stuff to like hold things back, and
so it's almost like a tower defense kind of situation.
Almost. Yeah, you can like kind of bottleneck them, because they'll be like, oh, I can't really get through here, but I could go this other way. So sometimes you put up the defenses on both sides, and they'll kind of try to come down the middle, and it's a lot of fun. Without going too much into the other games, like Gears 2, I got the maximum level in multiplayer almost exclusively just playing horde, and you don't get a lot of experience from playing horde. I played a little bit. I got some of the achievements for playing the other modes, but I was all about horde, and I bought map packs just for more horde maps. It's not something you can play by yourself. I'd say it's comparable to, came out around the same time that Call of Duty started doing the zombies.
Oh sure.
But I don't get into zombies. I think because I was into horde.
That was when online services all kind of started to figure out how to best deliver an experience that like motivated. It's not just you and a friend, but now it's like you and 3 friends. So that's now we just sold 4 copies of the game.
Exactly.
You thought it was cool,
and all these people have to have Xbox Live. But that's one testament to this series. Is it's what I consider, as far as these kind of games, like the last good couch co-op game. It's like keeping couch co-op alive.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading up that when this launched, it supplanted Halo 2 as the most played Xbox Live game.
Yeah.
Until Halo 3 came out.
Yeah.
The next year. So like it held that for I mean, a year at that point is a long time.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a love-hate thing. Some people love the style of the fighting because it's a lot different than any other game, even other third-person games. As far as multiplayer, there's the tricks, just like Halo has, like, wow, punching does almost as much damage as in loading a whole clip on a guy. This game was pretty synonymous with rolling up on someone and shotgunning them. It was just a bunch of somersault shotgun artists for a lot of the matches. So I wasn't a huge fan of the multiplayer aside. I get into it a little bit, but I don't know. It's one of those things you definitely have to practice. You can't just wander into and start playing. Like, you can't play the online the same way you can play the campaign, I find.
You really need some kind of, well, especially so in this mode in Ultimate as well. Granted, I didn't play in Ultimate, but really I think the only additions really are like player skins in the Ultimate
Yeah.
Edition?
Yeah. Mostly everything's the same maps and all that. I don't think they really added any maps.
It's like it's 4v4, and mostly it's just you have one life, and once it's gone for that round, you're done.
Yeah, there's death matches. There's also the King of the Hills, where you do respawn.
Okay.
And then there's basically like capture a ring, and then
there's VIP, or it's called Assassination, I think.
I think so.
Where like each team has a leader, and the first team to take out the other team's leader
gets a point.
Gets the round. It's cool. It's quick. That's what I remember the most is if you got downed, if you were the first death in the round, you maybe had to wait a minute or two.
Yeah, you were waiting quite a while. But sometimes the last guy would be a real champ and take the clutch win. But it was one of those ones where it's fun to watch in spectator. Even if you suck, you can watch other people not suck. Kind of revise your own strategy. Be like, oh yeah, that's what I should have done.
So one of the cool things is that there's more than just the story. Like you've got ultimately competitive multiplayer. You've got some co-op stuff in the series that you can really dig into if you choose to.
It's one of those ones that's definitely a good first game to build a foundation on. Like other series that came out around the same time, I don't know how they even got a second one. If you've ever played the first Assassin's Creed, for example,
I did.
I don't know if has the club done an Assassin's Creed game?
We have not.
Okay, because that's one I would say skip the first one.
We should.
That's what actually during one of my podcasts we do a thing called the backlog roulette, and it's effectively a way to get us to play all these games that we were just talking about. Oh man, I want to play this, but for some reason it just goes on the shelf while you try to keep up with the new releases and stuff like that. So we designed that to get us playing stuff. And my co-host Chris, the old ass retro gamer friend of ours, he got Assassin's Creed on one of the last ones, and he was a trooper and powered through it. But he's just like, how did it just get a second one? I'm like, I don't know. I'm glad they did, because I said the same thing when I was like, I keep hearing it's an awesome series and there's cool moments, but here's where it really starts. But this one is it starts strong and then it builds upon being strong. I'm not just here to gut Assassin's Creed. Sorry, Assassin's Creed fans, but I think most people I've talked to kind of agree. It starts cool and you're like, oh, this is cool. Then you go to the second area and it's the same. You're basically doing the same thing in 4 or 5
rinse and repeat kind of thing.
Yeah, and it definitely builds upon it and gets better. But this one, I said it starts strong, and the series kind of stays strong. There's a few, I don't know, moments where you could say it stumbles a little bit, but I think
I think a game series that's now has 7, 8 games in it, if you count tactics and Gears Pop. They're allowed a stinker once in a while, right?
Yeah, I want to try tactics, and hopefully it comes to the consoles soon, because as much as I really liked Halo Wars, as much as a lot of people dismiss that, so I'm all for trying a different style in the same universe as a game.
I've heard, every indication I've heard is it fits perfect, and it'll be on Game Pass whenever it comes. I don't know. If you don't have Game Pass, you should get Game Pass.
I'll still buy it.
Okay.
I'm like that. I'll play the digital games on it. It definitely comes in handy for those. So I'd probably get a month at a time. I don't think I'd stay subscribed to it, kind of. So
yeah,
I'm physical games as they come out, but I'm
preloaded for a while. I'm paid up until February 2022.
Damn.
On Game Pass. So I'm
not a Series X day one guy, I guess.
We'll see. We'll see. I need to know when pre-orders can open. I think for me the cool thing, and I don't mean to take us on a tangent with Game Pass here, but the cool thing I think about it is I see people who freak out if their Amazon order is late.
Yeah, that's me.
And it's if I have Game Pass.
Only when I really care though. And when I really care is the only time it isn't on the day that it's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
When it's a game, I'm I want it, but I'll pre-order it.
But in this case, it's like I could pre-download it. I can have it. I can still get my physical copy if I want a physical copy of it. But honestly, I haven't had to but maybe Game Pass will lead us to like cooler collector's editions, like even cooler collector's editions.
Absolutely. I'm just hoping they don't do like the PC games where you get like the collector's edition and it comes with a case with a code for the game to download it.
Oh yeah,
because I'm pretty sure when everything goes all digital, that's what it's going to be, basically like PC collector's editions. But
that could be. That could be.
As long as they sell steel books.
Anyways, all right, pull it back in here. So, let me see here.
But that is a solid option to play Gears. You can play it for basically free. Basically free, yeah.
Yes.
And any of the newer ones. What's that?
Oh, I was gonna say, and it's not a long game. There's good substance to it. You know, there's stuff to collect in the main quest, in the form of like dog tags, which unlock like a side comic book, which I haven't delved into that. One of the cool things I want to talk about, what some of the things that even just the opening like 10 minutes of the game does is to set a lot of like you're put in the middle of a story. You're not put at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, it doesn't start on Emergence Day. It's like 15 years later or something, like close to that, isn't it? 15 or 20 years after.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Like the world is destroyed at this point, right? For some reason, your character's in prison and your best friend's here to bail you out by ripping the door off. And
because that's what Dubros do.
That's right. Yes, I'm gonna get you out. And then proceeds to say, hey, like, we got one shot, let's go. I need you. And then you go off on your little quest. But they do so much, and I heard somebody talk about this in like the lead up to, maybe it was the lead up to 4, but they talked about, it was an interview with Rod Ferguson. He talked about one of the biggest things for Gears was that they built negative space in the world, meaning that they talked about how it's like the first time one of these characters meets Marcus Phoenix, who is the lead character.
Absolutely.
They go, Marcus Phoenix, you fought in the Pendulum Wars.
Yeah, and it makes you go, what's that?
And
they can make a whole game.
It's the only time they reference it in the entire game, but it's like, oh, this guy, like, it makes you inquisitive. You go like, well, what's his deal? What were the Pendulum Wars? Like, what's all that? Why is he like a war hero?
Why is he? Yeah, he's a war hero, but he's in jail. Like, what did he do?
Like, what's happening? Like
that's what. Yeah, that's how you organically make people care about, where the story goes, what the hell led to this, and they only give you a little bit each game, and especially where 5's gone, it really goes. Ooh. It always gives you a little bit that makes you think some more, and then you got to wait for the next game. Yeah. They really know how to keep that going by starting in the middle of the story, especially is the best thing, because then you're like, there's so much back story that they can expand on with comics, movies, or something.
Comics, movies, TV series, like all of that is on the table, and I don't doubt that some of those things could happen.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they could totally do Marcus Phoenix, the college years, or something.
Yeah, they could just make Gears of War, Pendulum Wars, or something.
Yeah,
and I think that's actually what Tactics has to do. I think it's around that time, so they can jump all over in the timeline with these games, and that's kind of what they've done. They've had one prequel game that was before this, but even that was after Emergence Day, so it's a pretty ripe world for keeping it going with games. It's not really scraping the bottom of the barrel when they add a new one. You're like, what? That guy died in the last one. How do they? Oh, he's back to life now. They don't have to do big flights of fancy. They can just kind of, all right, this is what the threat is now. We got to keep. Why are they fighting? Like,
yeah.
So it's So far they haven't had one where it's stupid, where they've just been, where you got to use a suspension of disbelief to be like, why there's another one. Some games kind of shoot themselves in the foot that way.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to make an end where they they leave it open, or they just make an end where you feel like, oh, that must be, they just must be tired of making these games. That's the end. There can't possibly be another one.
Yeah. Well, and without oversharing information here, like the end of this game, they knew the sequel was coming. Like they were prepared for it, right? Like there's very much oh, this is not over, like type of moment.
To kind of make a pun, sort of. Sorry ahead of time, but you literally just kick the hive, and and piss everyone off. So it's good, but it also has enough finality to be like, all right, that's a good jumping off point to be the end of this game. That's why I think I love the series, is that it's just the way it tells the story. It doesn't overshare, it doesn't tell you too much, but it keeps you wondering, and okay, well, I got to get the next game now.
Yeah.
And also has the gameplay to back it up where it's not boring. So I think that's what I really liked about it. Did you have any favorite characters or anything like that?
I mean, I think the main you mentioned before that the characters are always they're super chatty in a good way, and there's back and forth sometimes.
Yeah.
There's some fun back and forth, like, so you meet up with a couple of guys from Alpha Squad. That's Damon Baird and Augustus Cole, and they become pretty much staples, except when they're like, okay, you guys are going to be over here now. Like they're just going to be like, you guys stay.
Everyone just goes in pairs everywhere, it seems.
Yeah,
there'll be like one big firefight where all of them are there, but then okay, there's two ways to go. I guess two that way, two of us this way, and I mean, it gives you alternate routes to take each time you play the game too. So I get that.
That's true.
Pretty fun. But
yeah, I dug those two guys. I mean, I think everyone's gonna say that they like Marcus. He's just like his voice is exactly what you would want. Like you said, John DiMaggio is the voice for Marcus Phoenix.
Excellent voice actor.
Yeah.
Bender from Futurama, if you don't know who that.
He's also Waka from Final Fantasy X.
Absolutely. And Final Fantasy VII, he's what's that guy's name?
Heidegger,
yeah. And yeah, he's also Jake the dog if you're a kid and like
there you
time. My kids are pretty stoked.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's a pretty prolific actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Marcus. Hate Baird.
Baird's just like he's like character. He's the egghead, but he's supposed to be just a jerk. Like he comes across as
just a dickhead, egghead. Exactly. Yeah. And he's not too bad in this game. Like he's a little, you get his character like, he's kind of an ass, whatever. One thing Church and I noticed when we're playing through the other ones, it's like he's a lot more quippy in a couple of the other ones where you're just like, okay, shut up now. Like, I'm really not into you right now. But then they actually make a game where he's like the central character. Him and Cole are kind of the only ones that are from the other games that are in it.
Yeah.
So you warm up to him a bit more in that one, but yeah. Every time he kind of gets my eyes rolling a bit during these games.
That's fine.
Yeah,
and I think it's nice that he kind of they don't overdo it. Like if they had him with you from the moment you meet him to the end of the game, like and you never got a break from him, that would be really tough. But
yeah, he's good in spurts for sure. Like he's effective in what he's supposed to be doing. Like it's not like they're like, oh man, everyone's gonna love this Baird guy. It's not like he's like Jar Jar where they're like, oh, people are gonna love this guy, and you're like, no, actually, he's an ass, and they intended him to be that way. So he's effective, and everyone's got their own personality, so it's different.
Yeah, I think people love Cole though. Like I think Cole is like the Cole train. Like I feel like he's a former football player who like became a soldier, and like I don't know, like he continues to embody that the dude bro like mentality, but he seems more playful with it. and I think I like him for that reason.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They all have their own, like I said, personalities that you come to enjoy or get annoyed by.
Yeah,
it's great. What about the antagonists?
The one big bad
Mm-hmm.
in this game is General Rom, who's in Killer Instinct now. Like,
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he's.
Well, they also got a Battletoad, and those fighting games, they're kind of going the Mortal Kombat route or Soul Calibur.
Sure.
I guess Soul Calibur did it first. I should give credit where it's due, but they always got to have their guest fighters.
Rom, to me, you don't get enough of him. He seems like a combination of Nemesis from RE3 and Lurtz from Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, it's totally true. Speaking on the story of like how well they flesh everything out, he seemed kind of underdeveloped. He's just kind of like, oh, he's the leader, and he wants to kill Gears. Mm-hmm. That's basically as far as that goes. But
yeah,
then you find out he's not the leader.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of motive. You don't get a lot of insight into the why. Like, why did Emergence Day happen?
They definitely flesh it out later on, but it's definitely one of the big questions. Like, so why did they emerge and kill everyone?
Yeah. Why do they continue to do it? Yeah.
They're the mole people that just can't stand the surface dwellers and think it's their time in the sun.
For as far as you just straight up the enemies you're dealing with, they all have a style to them. The Locusts are like one race, and then the Theron are like a slightly different race. Obviously, the Wretches are different. The Corpsers are their own thing. Like it's
because at first they basically seem like Urukai with guns. Yeah, the Therons are just seem like skinnier versions of like more like a goblin with they're more stealthy, whereas the other ones are just kind of big.
And they got big flowy. They got big flowy like capes or like coats on.
They got some real cool regalia, whereas the other ones are just kind of wearing pants and run at you, and you're like, all right, and then.
Yeah, there's the shirtless dude. The shirtless dude with the shotgun.
Yeah. And then you got the spiders looking things that are the Corpsers, and they're gigantic. Yeah, so they got a good set of enemies. They're not just like a lot of the other shooter games where they got like two kinds of soldier. You're like, oh, there's a heavy guy, and then there's the little nothing grunt guy. So that's cool. It's good. You don't get bored of shooting the same guys all the time.
Yeah. Well, and they do a nice job of mixing it up. And again, if you manage to, like, in some of those cases, those fights that would have a lot of the like just drone type enemies, those are those fights that you can end early. If
they're all coming out of the holes or whatever. Yeah, but they found a good way to even switch that up where you're fighting essentially the same kind in the other games, but they always got a twist to them. So yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, so definitely
play the series, people. Play the series.
Check it out. Don't just dismiss it as like a Call of Duty type game. I find it's got a lot more life to it and more creativity. It's not a yearly iteration game where they're just popping them out. They give it some love.
They sure do. The audio in this is pretty on point, and we mentioned it earlier that it's like death is a very noisy thing in this game.
It's very squishy, splattery, macaroni sounds.
or like someone took a bunch of fajita meat and threw it against a wall, kind of thing.
It's a lot of splatter.
It's just, but just all of it. Like everything has purpose. There's especially like when you're running, like the surface you're running on, you hear differences. Like if you're running on like a metal like catwalk kind of thing, you get kind of that as you're like roadie running along and like going, like you'll hear like the metal footsteps, and then you'll go over to like a sidewalk, and it sounds different, and
You hear
you slam
gravel
against
under your boots.
yeah.
The sound effect, the Foley artists in this like deserve to be in like the Video Game Hall of Fame, I think. For sure. How about the music? Do you have any music that really? The music I find it's very purposeful, but it's nothing super. It's not distracting or really stand out. There's a couple.
It does a good job to enhance some of the moments, like the stuff, like when they set out to do the like, because they came out and said we want a tactical third-person shooter, but we wanted to also have survival horror, and the music I think is what gets you the closest to the survival horror aspect. Like just those like kind of like high strings when you're dealing with just hallways, or like you're in a mansion at one point, and like a door like blasts like just gets knocked off its hinges, and here comes people, like, and the music all builds that really well. Exactly. There's the big anthem for Gears of War, like the big, when I think of Gears of War, the song that I think of isn't from this game, but I keep feeling like it is. Like there's just like the kind of like fanfare. I think it's from 2 is when that starts. But there's like the start of it happens here. Like you can kind of see like the seedling of it that eventually like becomes the second game. But
well, the Horde kind of has like a little bit of a theme to it too, I find too. But that's
that one.
Yeah. It's like kind of the music that I think of when I think of Gears, but you also think of that little sound.
The do 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 like that.
But that sound when you first start it up, it's not really a song. It's more like a sound. It's almost like a singing voice.
Like on the opening like screen type of thing.
Yeah, like a little trailing off like singing voice, but without saying words. It's just kind of going.
I think I've got you. I'll throw that in here.
You'll know what if you played, you'll know what I mean. But it's almost like a little operatic voice kind of trailing. But like it serves its purpose. But there's nothing you're not really gonna want to buy the soundtrack and pump it in your car. But it definitely is more of an atmospheric soundtrack.
All in all, like when this game came out, there were a ton of people who were lauding it. There were 5s out of 5s and high 9s, or maybe like mid to high 9s. And I think that it deserved it then. I think it still deserves it now. I feel like the Ultimate Edition did a really good job.
Yeah, new and complete. I mean, if you played the PC version, it probably feels just the same. But for us console guys, it was a breath of fresh air, some new life into a thoroughly pummeled game. But great stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm glad we picked it. When they said to us, "Hey, we're gonna do an exclusive on the Xbox," it was like, this feels like the right series for people because there's a ton of people who've missed it. And
I honestly feel like it's the killer app these days. Like everyone kind of makes Halo synonymous with the Xbox, but I find that this last gen anyway, it feels like there's been one Halo game besides Halo Wars and the Master Chief Collection, but there's been the 2 big released Gears games, and it feels like they might be stealing the spotlight a little bit. So I mean, it's good to be more than a one-trick pony, because I know a lot of people like, oh yeah, have fun with just Halo.
What have you done that's not Gears and Halo? But I mean, this is the game that they put out to compete with the PS3 launch.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is what they said. They're like, this is chips on the table. We want a third-party exclusive to be the reason why you decide to pick up a 360 that you could cook things on, and instead of a PS3.
I really still want the Gears of War edition of Gears of War 3 360 bundle. I bought the Halo 4 one, that came out like 2 months before it, and was so mad when I saw the Gears 3 one. I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, I just got
That's
a new
the red one, right?
Yeah, the red one that makes the Gears sounds when you turn it on. I've got the Halo 4 one's amazing looking. It actually reminds me more of like a Mass Effect 360, but it's
with the blue, yeah,
but it's is what it is. Sorry, another tangent.
Hey,
I'm good at that. If you need to fill time, just get me talking about crap.
Hey, it's all good stuff. We love games here. But yeah, I think we're going to call it a day for Gears of War. So on behalf of the club and the other hosts of CC Prime, I want to thank you, Jason, for joining us to talk about Gears of War. Jason, where are the best places that people can find you and your content? And are there any projects that you're working on that you'd like to share or let us know to keep an eye out for?
Well, my YouTube channel is CorpseFlood Gaming. I host the Super Enabler Bros show podcast with my friend Chris the Old Ass Retro Gamer, and we're gonna have you on as a guest soon if you can make the time. I also do unboxing stuff. I'm a little behind on the content on the YouTube because life's busy, but I find the podcast is a way to keep at least bi-weekly content coming. So I'm loving that. I'm also on the Game Tenants podcast with my friend Church the Game Grinder. You can find that over on his channel or on any podcast apps. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook under CorpseFlood Gaming. And just follow me if you want to see the ridiculous amount of games I beat.
And he does. And I'll make sure that there will be links to all of that in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate having you on. I know it was 2 months in a row, but
hey, I like video games here too.
Yeah,
especially Gears. I was like, anytime you need to talk about Gears, I'm down home.
That's
better
awesome.
than talking to people who don't care about Gears.
Yeah, that's true.
I work like, oh my god, and they're like, I don't care, dude. It's not Fortnite. All right.
Fair enough. And if you want to find me again, you can find me, Musty Hobbit, on Twitter at Musty Hobbit. I've also recently started putting more videos on my YouTube channel. So if you ever are interested in Xboxer briefs, you can check out youtube.com/Musty Hobbit.
I've been loving those
videos. Thank you. I've been so happy to be able to start putting those out again.
Yeah, it was like, when you put out like what 2 or 3 of them, and then there wasn't one for a while. I was like,
yeah. Well, my buffer has built up a little bit. It's not a huge buffer, but at least it's giving me time to be able to do these and get kind of a nice rhythm with them. So I know that streaming, to many of you know that I stream on Twitch. That is kind of taking a little bit of a backseat, but I'm trying to. Summer's a thing.
Yeah, doesn't life suck when you're trying to? You got ambitions, but then other stuff's like, hey, I'm more important. You're like, yeah, I get that, but
yeah,
I want some fun stuff. I want to do. Yeah, that's my main struggle. I've got ambitions, but not the time.
Not endless time. Yeah. So we keep things balanced. But yeah, if you're interested in any of those things, again, I'll put links in the show notes as well if you want to check those out. But with this, we close out another episode of the Cartridge Club. For the month of July, Cartridge Club Prime will be playing Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo. You can also find that on the Switch online service, as well as the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, if you have that. And the Quick Save Club is in the middle of playing Antichamber. That's their game for the month, I believe, of June and July as well. If you are looking ahead to August, we have a big game ahead in August. So if you want to get a head start, we're playing Witcher 3 for CC Prime. I'm excited for that one. I bought
an Xbox One.
Yeah.
I like, okay, whatever comes first, Arkham Knight or Witcher 3, that's when I'm going to get the Xbox One finally. And then I actually just finally finished that at the beginning of this year. I don't do resolutions, but I was like, you know what? I got a bunch of games that I'm like really far into, and I gotta finish these. There's no excuse for not finishing them. And Witcher was the most egregious thing that I was like, I found out that I just had to go up to the guy and be like, hey, okay, let's go do this last battle. And I was like, really? I was that close? And I just sit down, and I think Batman came out, actually. That's why I stopped. So that's awful.
That's fantastic. Well, if you haven't already cleared Witcher 3 off of your backlog, I do hope that you join us in Cartridge Club for the month of August. We will be, again, playing Witcher 3. So look forward to that. But yeah, for me and for the rest of the hosts and for our guests, we look forward to hearing from you sometime real soon. CC Unite.